Welcome back! My name is ballerscuba. This is Video Games Over Time. We are still in 1982. Today, we're going to talk about pole position. The story of pole position takes us back to Namco. We have talked about Namco several times in our videos so far. Among Namco's highlights have been Galaxian, Pac-Man, Galaga, and Bosconian. We last talked about Namco in our video on Dig Dug. Pole position was the creation of Shinichiro Okamoto and Kazunori Sawano. We have talked about Sawano before. He had designed Galaxian. The concept of pole position was to create a realistic 3D driving simulator. Namco had experience with driving simulators before. In 1976, Sho Osugi had created F1, an electromechanical arcade game for Namco. Development for the game lasted for 3 years, which was very long for the time. Okamoto has stated that the hardest part of the game's development was producing the hardware that could handle the game. The game would run on two Z8000 microprocessors. The Z8000 was made by Zilog and was a powerful microprocessor for the time. For the game to use two of these powerful microprocessors was quite unusual for the time. The name pole position comes from professional racing. It is the term for the front position at the start of a race. It is said that Pac-Man creator Toru Iwatani suggested the name for the game, as he thought it sounded cool. The sound was designed by both Nobuyuki Onogi and YURIKO KEINO. Onogi had created the sound for both Galaga and Bosconian. YURIKO KEINO had worked on the sound for Dig Dug. Okamoto added the Fuji Speedway as a race course to the game. The real-life race course was added to bring credibility and realism to the game, as well as attract new players who might recognize the course. The game also features some of the first advertisements inside of a video game. Along the racetrack, there are billboards advertising real-world companies and their products. Pole position is a racing game. The player controls a Formula 1 race car in two distinct stages. The first stage has the player complete a time trial lap. Then, the player races against 7 computer-controlled drivers and must complete each lap before time runs out. If the player can complete all 4 laps, the game is over. Pole position was released in 2 different arcade cabinets. One was the more traditional upright arcade cabinet. This came with a steering wheel, a gear shifter, and an accelerator pedal. The other was an environmental or cockpit cabinet that would allow the player to sit down while playing. This also had the steering wheel, the gear shifter, and the accelerator pedal, but also featured a brake pedal. Namco released Pole Position on September 16th, 1982. Namco would license the game to Atari for release in North America. Atari released Pole Position in America on November 30th, 1982. Namco would also release the game in Europe in 1982. That is the backstory of Pole Position. With that now told, it's time to play the game for ourselves. And here we are in the game. This is Pole Position, as you can see, released in 1982. Now, this is a very early version of this game. There's a lot of versions of this game, but this is one of the early ones. It still has some Japanese in it, but as you can see, there's a lot of English on the screen. All the important stuff is really going to be in English for us, but there is still going to be some Japanese in this game, in case you're wondering what's going on. Once again, I should point out a little, caveat that I am not good at these kinds of games, so don't expect a lot from me going into this, but I have been able to get some good things to happen for me. As you can see, I do have some of the high scores. I struggled putting in my initials for a while, but I have actually figured out how that works. high score when you first start is only 12,000. That should be a number that we can beat, but I'm not sure that I can actually make it through the first lap of the actual race. That's how difficult this game can be without a lot of practice. But I'm going to do what I can. I should be able to at least make it into the race, and I can try to explain why I'm not very good. But let's go ahead and drop our quarter in, and we'll do what we can. We're going to start on the low gear, hit the button. Once we get up to about 100, 120, I'm going to switch over to high, and we're just kind of going to stay at this speed from now on. Alright, a little bit of squealing, but not too bad. Alright, we're still in the time trial, but they do have other racers show up if you're good, to be honest. Alright, well, hit the Pepsi sign. Bound to happen. Get back up to low and back to high. Okay. Yeah, when you hit something in this game, you just explode. And then your car respawns, which is always nice. Not realistic, but nice. Alright, now we're on the big straightaway, and there is the finish line. Alright, 67.82. That's good enough for 6th place. We'll switch back to low, and now we're in the official race. And I was a little early on the gear shift there. Got a little too excited. They do accelerate faster than me, but I have a better top speed than them, so eventually we can get past them should I be able to avoid them. The problem is that I am really bad at dodging the cars when I'm trying to drive past them. That is one of the hardest things for me to be able to do. Oh, turn too hard. Alright, low, get back onto the track, switch back to high. Okay, as far as I can tell, those water slicks, they don't do too much because, well, I haven't been able to hit them at top speed yet. And, alright. We're fine-ish. Nope, we're out of time. Alright, so I got a passing bonus of 5, and there we go. My best score so far. The game does go very quick. So the way to actually put in your initials is actually to hold the button, the accelerator button. I kept on touching it and it just didn't do anything. You have to hold it for quite a bit in order to make that to work. Alright, so there we go. Top score that I've been able to do so far. Let's drop in another quarter, see if I can't best that. Now, one of the problems with this game is that it does go very quickly, especially when you don't know what you're doing. Like I don't. So let's try again. Get up to a good speed here. Just a little bit of screeching. Not too bad. I have done better though. Once again, the hard part for me is dodging these guys, especially on those hard turns. Probably should have taken my foot off the gas, but doesn't ever feel right to me in a racing game to take my foot off of that unless I feel like I absolutely have to. I tend to just mash the gas and hope for the best. Alright, doesn't look like we're going to beat my time from last time. That's about the same. So, position number 6 again. We'll switch to low. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I do have a little thing that keeps track of that for me. Let's switch to like 200. Alright, that works a little bit better. I should probably switch a little bit later than what I have been doing. Alright, I got ahead of everybody. I don't know if that's going to stick, but that's going to save me a lot of hassle if I don't have to pass anybody anymore. Nope, there's more. Ow! That turn gets me. That turn gets me almost every time. Alright, around 200 we switch. Once again, the water slicks, I haven't been able to tell if they actually do anything because I don't think I'm going fast enough for them to do anything to me. Alright, 8, 7, 6, 5. Alright, I made it to lap 2. I'm calling this a victory. Not gonna make it to lap 3. Doesn't look good for lap 3. Might have to actually show a clip of somebody else doing that because my skills are not there. We're not even going to get close. That turn has always been the death of me, and I need like 30 seconds after that lap in order to get there. So I got a passing bonus of 15, and that gives me 27,400. I think we're going to do this one more time, see if I can actually beat that, but I'm not super confident that I'm ever going to beat that no matter how long I go today. So we'll put in one more quarter, see what I can do here. But this game, it does require a lot of practice, a lot of skill, a lot of split-second timing, and I don't have most of that. But we'll try one more time. A lot of games in the early 80s, they just need you to try it again and again and again. Right, hang out there for like 4 hours playing the game. Alright, a little bit less squealing that time. I think that worked out alright. Alright, around you. This one. I took my foot. I took it off the gas. It didn't seem to help. Alright, switch to high. It's always that turn. Okay, get around you. All right, straight away here. All right, 66. I think that's technically my best by like a second. Puts me in 6th place again, though. 6th place, even. All right, once again, somewhere around 200. Make the switch. All right, like 170-ish. Ah. Tried to avoid that first, that guy on the right, and overcompensated there, I guess. Okay. Yeah, I believe that in order to actually get through the end of the 4th lap, because they don't give you enough time to actually do all the laps. They don't give you enough time when you actually get a lap to do the next one. So you kind of have to be perfect from the get-go. So yeah, that's my worst one since you guys have seen it. So I think that's where we're going to call it. Yeah, Slaw. That's my name this time. So that is the game. That is Pole Position. As you can see, it is realistic but short. You're not going to get a lot of play out of a quarter unless you're very good at the game, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. That is the game now played, and with the game now played, let's talk about how Pole Position holds up today. When I play an old game today, the first thing that I think of is the game fun? That's where I usually start, and definitely this game is fun. It is a short game, once again, mostly because I don't have that much skill in it, but even if I did have a ton of skill, I'm not going to be able to play the game too long. Once you get through that 4th lap, the game's over for you anyway. But the game is definitely fun. With that said, I don't think that's necessarily the biggest appeal of this game. I would say that the graphics and sound far and away outshine the gameplay for this game. Especially for 1982, these are great graphics. The sound is also very good, and I think that the collaboration between the two Namco sound designers that we have talked about so far, I believe their names are Nobuyuki Onogi and YURIKO KEINO. The collaboration between those two turned out to work really well. It felt like I was hearing the acceleration of the car. It felt like I was hearing the screech of the tires. I was hearing actual explosions. That is quite an achievement. And of course, the graphics are stunning for 1982. They seem to be far ahead of anything else that we have played to this point. So ultimately, I would say the technical achievements of this game are what make it more fun than the other games that we have played. Well, some of the other games that we have played, I should say. This game is fun. In terms of the gameplay, it's a little stilted. The game does actually move your car. I don't know if I talked about this during the actual gameplay this time. But the game actually moves your car from left to right when you're in the turn. It just kind of tries to keep the car in the same exact spot. So I'm not actually turning the wheel to the right when I'm going through a turn. I'm only hitting left and right to try to basically change lanes during the turn. And that control scheme doesn't necessarily work for me. I would much prefer to have a control where I hit right and my car turns right. But that's not necessarily the way that this game thinks about it. And then, of course, if you're going too fast, it just kind of pushes you over into the outside. And if you're going too slow, then I'll push you to the inside a little bit. But those controls are understandable. They're just not the way that I personally prefer my controls when I'm playing a racing game. I want to be in complete control of the car. I don't want to, only be able to control kind of side to side movement. I want to actually make the turn. And this game doesn't necessarily do that. It doesn't necessarily feel like I'm in control of the car. It just kind of feels like more of a dodging game. And to be honest, the way that the game controls when it comes to dodging the enemies that are in front of you, the other cars in front of you, it is difficult. It is difficult to avoid them. It is difficult to try to see where they are. And of course, they can sneak up on you real quick when you're in that turn because you can't really see where you're going. So for somebody that's trying to get really good at the game to make it all the way to the end, this game's going to be frustrating. It wasn't frustrating for me this time because I was just trying to show off what I could do. But if I had a set goal of making it all the way to the end, it would have been very frustrating for me to continue to die because I didn't see a car in the middle of my turn, or I thought I was in one lane and it turned out to be in another. But ultimately, if you're going to be playing this game today, there are obviously better race games out there. There are better racing games to be played than the original Pole Position. But with that said, if you are interested in racing games at all, I would definitely give this game a try and see what you can do in this one. It's interesting, even if it's not necessarily the best. One of the reasons that it is so interesting is how influential it turned out to be in the racing genre, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But a lot of games borrowed and basically stole a lot of the concepts that were in this game, and anytime that happens, the original is not going to look all that great by comparison with what came later. They're going to make improvements on what the first one started. They're going to improve it and make it better in the future, and this game's not really an exception to that. But with that said, like I said, if you are interested in racing games, I would definitely give it a try. And if you're trying to compete with friends, this is a great option to bring in for a classic arcade party night. Just try to see who's the best at this old school racing game. It's worth your time. It is definitely important enough that it deserves to be in the conversations that it often is, in terms of great games, in terms of most influential games, and in terms of like best technical achievements of the time. And that's my modern take on the game. When Pole Position was released, it was popular. It is said to be the second highest grossing game of the year in Japan. In the United States, the game would sell over 21,000 cabinets by 1983, for a total of $61 million, over $167 million in 2021. The game would be the most popular arcade game of 1983 internationally. The critics also enjoyed the game. The critics enjoyed the gameplay and the graphics, seeing it as realistic and compelling, although opinions were mixed on the difficulty level of the game, which was seen as high. As time has gone on, the critics' opinions of the game have remained positive. The game is seen as one of the best and most influential racing games of all time. The game would spawn clones, ports, sequels, and remakes. Pole Position's popularity would even branch out beyond video games. We will keep an eye on this as we continue. Looking ahead, with one of the most successful games of the era, Namco would continue to be a force in the video game industry. We will be hearing from them again. As for Shinichiro Okamoto, Kazunori Sawano, Nobuyuki Onogi, and YURIKO KEINO, they would all continue to work for Namco, and we will hear from all of them again. That will do it for the story of Pole Position for now. My name is ballerscuba. This has been Video Games Over Time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in our next video when we take to the air.